You are listening to Proof of Love with Tatiana Moroz, Dr. Stephanie Murphy, and Lauren Kasovitz. This show may contain adult content, language, and humor and is intended for mature audiences. If that's not you, please stop listening. Nothing you hear on Proof of Love is intended as financial advice, legal advice, therapy, or really anything other than entertainment. Please take everything that you hear with a grain of salt. Oh, and if you're hearing us on an affiliate network, the ideas and views expressed on this show are not necessarily those of the network that you're listening on, or of any of the sponsors or affiliate products that you may hear about on the show. Now that that's squared away, let's start the show. Show me your heart. I know that it's beating. Tell me that you love me too. So I know your heart is true. 'Cause I need some proof of love. 'Cause I need some proof of love. 'Cause I need some proof of love. This episode of Proof of Love is brought to you by Vaultoro. Vaultoro is a gold hedging solution for the crypto community. One of the challenges of investing in cryptocurrencies is dealing with volatility. Keeping a diversified portfolio is a key to healthy returns. I keep about 10% of my crypto assets in gold using Vaultoro. Vaultoro allows me to open a gold wallet in seconds where I can trade easily with cryptos and gold. What I like about using Vaultoro instead of Tether is that the gold in my Vaultoro wallet is insured, audited, vaulted in Switzerland, and unlike fiat money, gold has increased in value for the last 20 years. Visit Vaultoro.com and start today. That is vault, like a gold vault, and oro, which is Spanish for gold. Vaultoro, ole! Hello, everybody, and welcome to Proof of Love. Today, we're going to be talking about mental health issues and social media. How do these things converge together? I'm joined by my co-host, Lauren Kasovitz. Hey, Lauren.
Hi. How's it going, everybody?
And Dr. Stephanie Murphy. Hey, Steph.
Hey there. I just want to suggest a show name, and it's a shout out to another podcast that I really enjoy. The other podcast is called The Mental Illness Happy Hour. So maybe we can call our show something like that today.
I like it.
I'm into that. So this is sort of like a weird topic. And also, before we get started on this topic, thank you to our wonderful sponsor, Vaultoro. Make sure you go over to Vaultoro.com and sign up to get Bitcoin and gold at the same time. So anywho, what do you think prompted this? I mean, I guess something really specific, but it is something that comes up. So what do you guys think?
So, ladies, I think all of us have seen posts on social media where someone is reaching out for help, whether that's with a problem that they're going through or maybe more of a persistent issue that with their mental well-being that bothers them or their emotional well-being, right? And I want to make it clear that we're not shaming people for this. Like, there's a lot of stigma around mental health. And also I think people can pile on to those who share on social media about it. And they have all kinds of critiques, and that's not really fair. So I want to just make it clear that we're not trying to do that. I think every single one of us on this show has had struggles with our mental well-being and our emotional well-being, mental health, whatever you want to call it, right? I don't know the correct term, but we've been there, right? We've had personal struggles. And, I want to talk about on the show today, what do you do when you see those posts on social media? And is social media helpful for helping people recognize and identify problems that they're going through that affect their emotional well-being? Or are there downsides to it? Can it be not very helpful sometimes if they don't get the help they're asking for, or if they get ignored, or if they get, their personal problems kind of spread around and people see it who are maybe, aren't the kindest about it. What do you ladies think? Have you seen people posting on social media, reaching out for help? And, what do you do about that? And how has this changed over our lifetime?
I'm not sure people should be sharing this on social media. That's just like a place where things go and so many people see it. I mean, I don't know. The irony is not lost on me having a dating show or whatever, but I don't know. Like, I don't think that people should be saying that they're having a mental breakdown on social media, because you can have that used against you in a lot of different ways. And also, how do these people online know about your life? You know what I mean?
Yeah, they're not doctors, right? You get a lot of Facebook doctors. And that's what I mean when I say, like, is it helpful? Because I understand everybody probably wants support, right? And that's why you use social media, to connect with other people and to find others you have things in common with, maybe to get answers to questions sometimes. And sometimes it can be helpful, but it's often also like a mixed bag, right? And you're talking to a lot of people who aren't professionals, and is it really helpful?
I have interesting feelings about this. I think that it's great if you can find maybe support groups and smaller social media sections, but I tend to feel the same as Tatiana in terms of really like just blasting it all over social media. If you're in a dire situation and you need help and you feel like you can't get that help yourself, or maybe your friends and family are not helping you, or you don't have friends and family, I get it. And I understand wanting to talk about it in terms of awareness. And I mean, we'll get into it, but I've talked about my specific issues that I've had in the past, but in a very vague way. I think it's also like personality to personality. Like, I don't feel that comfortable oversharing online. I don't know. It just makes me nervous. It's out there, even if you take it away. And it's not that I'm ashamed of anything that I've dealt with. It's not like that at all. It just, things can get twisted and turned on social media. It seems a little scary to me personally.
Tatiana, you were saying before that it could be used against you. What do you mean? Like in court or something? Or in other ways, like people just bring it up later?
I think that people like to throw things in other people's faces. So if they see weakness, or what they perceive as weakness, they'll maybe use it to throw back in your face and be like, oh, apparently, like, you're not supposed to have any kind of feelings about anything these days. So, yeah, I think that, yeah, I mean, if somebody has like a meltdown online, I don't think that's particularly helpful. Even if they don't have a meltdown, people go and look at your old tweets from 50,000 years ago. You're going to be talking about the time that you were like suicidal because, like, you know, your cat died and then like your boyfriend broke up with you at the same time. Like, I don't know. I don't know how helpful that is. And even in like a work situation, wouldn't that work person, like an employer, maybe at some point, I think that they would monetize monitoring of people's social media, and then they could say, oh, well, this person, they overshare online a lot, and then maybe that could be detrimental. I don't know.
Yeah, I think I'm on the same side as both of you ladies, with like what I'm with what I share, right? I won't say that I always have perfect mental health, right? Sometimes I have lots of feelings, and sometimes I have struggles and issues and problems like everybody. But I don't tend to put it online pretty much ever because, right, I'm like afraid it's going to be used against me, or it's just not going to be helpful, or there's going to be some spies or enemies on my list that are going to see it. Somehow somebody's going to see it who I don't want to see it. And I also just don't really want to I want to put the best version of myself out there, I guess, and it doesn't seem to go along with it. But then that's a problem because people carefully curate this image of themselves online, and it's not authentic, and they don't end up connecting. And so I think sometimes I err on the side of not sharing and also not connecting.
Yep, same. I agree with that. I think it's also a little dangerous just in terms of certain groups. Like, for instance, I'm part of an INFJ group on Facebook. Somebody added me. I have no idea who. I'm not active on any of these groups on Facebook. They kind of just sort through on my feed, and I kind of glance through them. But some of the things that I'm seeing in there, people feel like they're in this closed group, right? But if it's a closed group with like 100,000 people that you don't know, is it really a closed group? And they're talking about these really intense things and really intense feelings. And I don't know, like, for me, I get that maybe they don't have an outlet for it and it feels safe for them to vent. But I'm even looking at it like, who are you people? Do you not realize, like, I don't know you, and I'm just one of those people in the group. I don't know your context. I don't know your history. And you're suddenly just like blasting all of your feelings all over social media in this group. And it just kind of, I don't know, it just kind of looks crappy. And I feel bad for those people too, because I think oftentimes they really don't have another place to go. So it's a bummer also, because you want people to have an outlet of where they can go and talk about their feelings, but I'm just not sure social media is that outlet. I don't know.
Is this an outlet that was previously provided in society, or is this something, you know what I mean? Like, did people previously have friends to talk about this with, or is this solving a problem of the human condition that always does want to share what's happening inside? Like, is this a solution that's just still developing itself, or is it taking away from inhuman or in-person interaction that could maybe make people feel better.
I think sometimes it's easier to share personal problems with a group of strangers, right? Because the stakes are lower, because they're not going to judge you in the same way as your friends and family might. Or, you can just tell them, and if they react negatively, you never have to talk to those people again. So it's
Yeah.
it's weird. But, I was going to ask you ladies, like, what happens when you see a post of someone where they're clearly kind of asking for help or reaching out for help with something that's going on for them? What do you do when you see a post like that?
Oh God, that's tough. I think it depends who it is. I've heard some really sad stories about people reaching out and then not really feeling like they have anybody there for them and then, hurting themselves. I've heard it multiple times, and not random people, like people I know through a friend who I've met before. I think if it's somebody that I know in any capacity, even if it's just a passing acquaintance friend, I'll often reach out to them. If somebody is posting regularly on an open, Facebook page, and there's somebody I know and they're talking about being down and nothing's going right, and it's a consistent posting, I will be that person that reaches out to them on Messenger or something and just says something. I don't want to get too involved if it's someone I don't really know, because it just, in terms of my own safety and their safety and just gauging what's going on in my own life at the time. But I will say something like, I hope you hang in there. We're thinking about you. Sometimes people just need to know that someone cares, even if it's not somebody that they know very well. Sometimes that's even more effective. Like, oh, wow, Lauren reached out. I haven't seen her in 25 years. Wow. And it can unexpectedly make them feel better. It's not going to fix anything, but it can be a little bit of a boost. But I don't know if that's something of my Pollyanna personality. I'm not sure.
I think I'm kind of similar to your style, Lauren. Like, whenever I see a post where someone's asking for help, there's a part of me that wants to reach out to them, even if I don't know them very well, and just say like, hey, gonna be okay, thinking about you, talk to me, or something like that. But then, I've also been working on boundaries and
Yes.
protecting my own time and filling my own cup. And sometimes, like, I really don't have the resources or the space to reach out to someone and do kind of like emotional work for them, to try to help them.
Yeah.
And it sounds like cold and cruel, but I can't be offering something that I don't have. And so I need to check in with myself first and see if I'm actually able to do that. And then sometimes, maybe I can, but not right now. So I'll reach out to the person later when I have more space or something like that. But if it's someone I don't know very well, I tend to be like, I'm just going to avoid
Yeah.
that. It's only if it's someone I know and actually care about that I'm like thinking about, okay, I should really make time to reach out to them sometime soon.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and it's also a little tricky when it's somebody that you know in passing, but you also know that they have a group of solid friends. I've had that happen before on Facebook, where people are just kind of going off the rails, and I know that they have support. I know that they have friends. So I don't feel as obligated to reach out and make sure they're okay, because I do know they're friends, and I know that they are doing that, or they've done it for a certain amount of time and it's not getting anywhere, and this person is just at that point where they're venting on Facebook, and that's all they want to do is vent on Facebook. So
yeah, also you have to sort of like think about this math a little bit, because it's like if you were to reach out to every person you saw asking for help on social media, it would be a full-time unpaid job. And so you have to consider that, right? And you have to choose wisely about who you do reach out to, because it's not even going to be helpful for them if you don't have anything to offer.
yeah, no, it's true. I mean, I haven't, and I know we're going to get into this, but I haven't really talked about my OCD on social media. I just don't. But back 1,000 years ago, when social media wasn't a big thing and we still all only had like 60 Facebook friends and people weren't on it, there were times where I would share an article or something like that that was related to OCD or just something in that vein. And I was surprised at how many people reached out to me, not even just to see if I was okay, because they were never venti posts. It was more just like, here's some information. And I was surprised at how many people reached out saying, oh, I have this, or my sister has this. This is super helpful. And I think it just is also, it's just context, you know, it's like, where are you putting it out? When are you putting it out? What kind of response are you looking for? It's, I don't know. I think the whole thing is really interesting, the whole social media and any kind of issue or mental illness or venting or whatever it may be.
Do you guys think that any of the websites like talkitout.com or whatever it is, I've never gone to them before, but they're sort of at-home ways of just dialing a number and having a therapist to talk to. Do you know anybody who's had experience with that? Do you think that that would be effective?
Yes, I do know some people who have had experience with them, and this might be a little bit biased because one is like, you know, a podcast that advertises their services who also say that they benefit from them. I'm not going to name them, but maybe some people know who they are. But, you know, they kind of swear by these services and they advertise them because they believe in them. And there's other people I know who have used internet therapists, so-called, and they've found it really helpful. And also on the flip side, I know a couple of people who are therapists or coaches who work for these services, and they love it because it's kind of flexible working hours and they can, you know, choose how many clients they take on. And there's like really clearly defined boundaries and rates and everything like that. So, you know, just like anything, right? You could get a bad therapist, right? You have to, if you're choosing a therapist, you have to kind of audition them or screen them somehow, or just talk to them to see if you're a good fit. And you may have to talk to a few of them before you find someone who's a good fit with you. It's not like you can just go to any therapist and you're going to automatically have a relationship. It's a relationship. And so that has to be built. So with an internet therapist too, I think there's also some of that relationship building that could go on. But yeah, absolutely. I'm really glad those services exist because I think they're really helpful.
I agree too. And also I went for many years being a freelancer or an independent contractor without health insurance. So I could have never afforded going to a therapist on a regular basis. I've never used these internet services, but I've thought about them in the past. And they generally tend to have more sliding scales, or you can choose your weeks or however it works, like your time frame. And I think for people that maybe don't have the resources to go to, you know, a traditional therapist with insurance or the money to pay for it out of pocket, it's super helpful, especially today when people are lonely and disconnected and doing everything online, especially for a younger generation. It probably feels a lot more, I don't know if this is a good or a bad thing, but it probably feels a lot more natural for them to be talking to somebody online or via video chat or however these services work instead of going in person. I don't know that it would work for me personally, but I can see how it could be hugely beneficial for a lot of people, for sure.
Do you guys think that there's something specific to the tech community that lends itself to mental health issues that are perhaps not discussed? Like, look at how the market has crashed for a few years. You know, we had this bear market. I think that a lot of people have been kind of cracking up and they don't necessarily talk about it. Do you think that there's anything that can be done to encourage that? Or do you think that that's just like in competition, you're not supposed to admit your weakness?
Oh, that's a great question.
Yeah.
Yes, I do think that speculating in cryptocurrencies or any kind of technology related business is extremely stressful. And the best advisors that I know, the best people who publish newsletters and, you know, advice and stuff like that, they have some element of how to manage your stress in there during a market that's full of volatility. Because yeah, when you have money on the line, it's definitely stressful. And then also combined with sort of a culture that says, don't show any weakness, don't talk to anybody about this, it can really drive some people nuts. So I guess I don't really have much advice about that, but just that, you know, just to validate, like, it's okay to feel stressed out and need someone to talk to about something like this market volatility going on. But it's also okay to want to talk to someone about something like grief, you know, like losing a family member, losing a relationship, right? That's very normal human emotion that everybody experiences, or anxiety or stress or, you know, depression, OCD, like you mentioned, Lauren. All of these things are things that a lot of people struggle with, and you're not alone.
No, you are not alone. And I don't know if this is a good time to segue because I have a few things I'd love to share on the topic.
Yeah, please.
So when I found out I had OCD, it was 1,000 years ago. Like the internet was just taking shape. And for probably, all right, I'll start at the beginning. I am not somebody who had childhood OCD. For me, it came on out of nowhere, seemingly to me, when I was about 19. So growing up, I didn't have it. I was always a really organized, neat kid. Like I like things in their place, but it was more just being an organized, neat kid. And then when I got to college and was on my own for the first time, and I was in a sorority, just the stress of life and just how different things were really took a hold. I didn't realize it at the time. Looking back, I can see it clearly, like, oh, wow, so obvious. But I started experiencing really, really strange things and patterns and obsessions that were going on in my head. And it was so incredibly distressing. Like, God, it's really hard to just put into words how stressful OCD can be, especially when you're going through, you know, your teen years or your 20s and you're changing, you're growing, you're still going through a ton of hormonal changes and body changes. I was a late bloomer too, so I was still growing physically and emotionally. And for probably, I'd say 3 years, I had these obsessive thoughts and fears and patterns and reactions to these thoughts that I had to do in my head. I had no idea what it was. Nobody talked about OCD at the time. There was no like internet chat groups about mental health. There was, you know, AOL Messenger, there was cybersexing, but like that's really all that was going on the internet at that time. And I read an article, and I'm just going to give you guys a tiny brief little line about what OCD is. It's a common, chronic, long-lasting disorder in which a person has uncontrollable recurring thoughts or obsessions and behaviors, which are compulsions, that he or she feels the urge to repeat over and over. So I was sitting at home, I think, and I believe it was Marie Claire or Glamour magazine. It was a fashion magazine. And I read an article, and it was describing what OCD was. And I remember hysterically crying, reading it, being like, oh my God, this is what I have. This is it. I still remember that article saying that OCD were these compulsions and patterns, and you felt like in your head, if you didn't do something, whatever it was, everybody with OCD has a different thing that they like to do. Some people wash their hands, some people knock wood, some people, whatever it is. And you feel like that is a way that you are ensuring that whatever negative feeling you're having won't happen. So it's almost like you're preventatively doing something that will make something else not happen. But that thing that is not going to happen is completely in your head. It is the strangest thing. And for the most part, at least for me, it was a silent disorder. You would never meet me and know I had OCD. I didn't have an extreme version. I wasn't going around touching things a million times. But reading that and discovering it was like, oh my God, this is what I have. Like, I'm not crazy. This is a thing. This is a real thing that people have. And so I kind of just delved into it and did all the research I could. At the time, I was in a really serious relationship, and he was so incredibly supportive. He had noticed my quirks. I mean, at the time, it was just a lot of hand washing and thoughts in my head. So I would just like suddenly go silent in a conversation because I was repeating a phrase like however many times at that time felt normal in my head so that something negative wouldn't happen. It's a really, really kind of traumatizing disorder. And I remember many, many times while I had it, especially in the beginning when it was pretty bad, I would say I was at an intermediate level of OCD. You just kind of like, for me, I was angry a lot inside because I would look at my friends and they didn't have anything wrong. And they could just like walk down the street and be a normal person. And for me, it was like, how are you not thinking a million things? How are you not scared that if you don't, say the number 3 50 times in your head, somebody's going to die? Like it was because that's the way the thoughts are. And it made me very angry. And instead of going to therapy or having an outlet online, I just started talking about it with my friends. And I just my close friends, and I wanted to let them know what was going on with me, what was happening. I talked to my parents about it, my family. Most people were really confused. People did not know what OCD was back then. They just didn't. And through talking to people, I actually discovered that I have 3 friends from 3 different groups of friends who also suffer with OCD. And it was an incredibly bonding thing for us, kind of how I'd imagine certain small, online groups are now for people talking about things. But we would talk about it. We all had different kind of tics that we had, different compulsions, different obsessions. They really did range. It was really kind of fascinating to see. One of my friends had a way more extreme version of OCD, and I just felt like extreme empathy for her all the time. I don't even know how she functioned. But in talking about it, we kind of like almost normalized it to each other. And I'm sorry if I'm just going off on this for like 15 minutes. Sorry, guys.
No, this is great. This is really interesting. I have follow-up questions when you're done.
Oh, okay. So yeah, it was really incredible to A, discover what it was, have a pinpoint to it, and B, discover that I wasn't alone, not only in the world, but within people I actually knew. And so as time went on, I just started doing a ton of research through books and learning about what it was, how I can control it. And I still hadn't gone to therapy. And I managed to manage my OCD. It was really hard, but I had the support of friends and family who maybe didn't understand what the hell I was going through, but I had the support of my significant other at the time who never made fun of me for the things that I needed to do, or going silent in a conversation, or saying certain phrases a million times. And this was when my OCD was pretty freaking bad. Like, I look back on it and I'm like, how was I a functional person at this time? Like, I don't even know, because now I would say my OCD tendencies and my obsessions and compulsions are maybe 10% of what they were in my 20s. I mean, it is as I've grown up and just been through things, and just my body chemistry has changed, it's changed for me. It's 1,000 times more manageable. But I still remember the first time I went to therapy, I was, I think, 27 maybe. And I told her I had OCD, and I explained, I just talked through things with her. And she told me, she was like, you're so advanced in your healing. She was like, I've never met somebody with OCD who's kind of therapized. I don't remember her exact words, but she was like, who's kind of like therapized themselves over the years. She's like, it's kind of phenomenal to me that you are a functioning adult without ever having therapy. And I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing. At the time, I took it as like a high compliment. I'm like, oh, I'm amazing. I can like rule my own brain. But it was, I was really proud of myself. But it did change throughout the years. It's something I've been open about with people, because I found that it's important to be. Because if you're going through something, any kind of mental illness, especially something that's just so time consuming at different points in your life, it's important for the people who love you, whether they understand or not, to know what you're going through, and for me, being introverted and friendly and having OCD was really challenging for many years. My breakups were 1,000 times harder in my own head, because I could not get out of my own head. It was really, 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 really strange. And even looking at it now, I've gone through breakups in my 30s. I just was totally different back then when I was really, really suffering from the OCD. So I went to that one therapist. I talked to a few different doctors after that, and I tried medication, but for me personally, and I'm not anti-medication, I'm very pro-medication, but it didn't work for me. I didn't need it. I had weird side effects. A lot of doctors now are prescribing certain antidepressants for people with OCD and anxiety disorders. But for me, it was just that knowledge of what it was, learning about it, sharing it with people, and kind of understanding it and trying to manage it within my own head that helped me, that healed me. So that is my OCD journey. I'm still going on it. When I'm stressed out and when things are bad, I still revert to certain things. I no longer have the obsessions in my head where I think if I don't do something a million times or a certain number of times that somebody's going to get hurt. That, thank God, has kind of just died off over the years, because that is, oh God, guys, it's like such a torturous way to live. It just really is. It makes no sense. It's hard to explain it to people. You sound like an insane person. It's just really hard. But Tatiana's hung out with me plenty of times. I'm a total germ phobe. I still wash my hands all the time, but it's less about, do I have to wash my hands 6 times and then everybody's going to be okay? It's more just like, I touch that, it's dirty. I need to wash my hands and I feel better. So yeah, my fiance knows about it. He didn't even flinch when he found out about it. He was like, oh, okay. Because I think these days, mental disorders, mental illnesses, whatever they are just more talked about, more open. It's less like of a taboo. But I definitely dated people back in the day who were freaked out about it. Yeah. Who didn't understand it, who maybe just didn't have the empathy for it that I needed. But yeah, kind of disjointed, but I've never actually talked about my OCD this much.
Thank you so much for sharing this, Lauren. Like, I have a bunch of questions if you're willing.
Yeah, of course.
The first question is, how do you think this would have been different if there had been social media and more talk about mental health on the internet at the time when you discovered that you had OCD?
Oh my God, it would have been life-changing. I mean,
like
it was
faster. You would have discovered it faster.
Yes, it would have. I mean, I kind of lost 3 years of my life in a lot of ways, not knowing what was wrong with me. I mean, I was scared every day. I thought I was losing my mind. I had no idea what it was. I discovered what I had through a magazine article. I mean, if I was a younger person, even maybe just 10 years younger, I probably would have known what OCD was in some capacity from the time I was a kid, just having heard it here and there. So yeah, I think it would have changed things. It would have caused me to maybe get help as opposed to waiting almost 10 years to talk to a therapist and see what I could do. It probably, while I'm proud that I did all this work on my own without therapy, yeah, therapy would have been enormously helpful. And if I had understood that could have helped me without doing it all on my own, oh my God, huge. Or talking to people about it before, coming out to some of my friends, I know that they've probably felt the same way. It's any kind of, disorder that you have, whether you have a really mild version or a really extreme version, it's having somebody who's gone through it or is going through it to talk to about it, even just online. Oh my God, life-changing. It would have changed everything for me, for sure.
Yeah, so maybe this gives us an insight into why people do share about emotional and mental stuff, well-being. Yeah. So, okay, my last question is, what was the most helpful thing that a friend or partner did to support you? And what was the least helpful reaction you got from someone you shared this with?
Ooh, okay. I could tell you least helpful off the bat. People who didn't, I don't want to say that you need people to research what's going on with you, but people who kind of just heard it and disregarded it. That was probably the hardest thing for me. If I would tell somebody I was very, very close to, like, this is what I've been going through for the past couple of years, this is what I have, this is a part of me, and they didn't even take the time to check out what it meant or look at a basic, go online and just type in OCD or friends with OCD or something. I had quite a few people at that time who kind of just disregarded, and they were like, okay, cool, thanks for telling me. And on one hand, it's nice to feel normalized and have somebody, not make it like it's a big deal. But when it is a big deal in your life, sometimes you need people to just acknowledge that. Like, I'm sorry that you're going through this. How can I help? Nobody could have helped. Like, there's not anything anyone could have done. But even just saying that, like, sorry that you're going through that, or I can't imagine how that feels. Hearing a line like that from a friend was enormous at the time. Just really, like, just validating that people care. And yeah, when I felt like people didn't really care to figure out not figure out, that's the wrong term. But when I felt like people just didn't have an interest in understanding what it was I was going through that I was close with, oh God, it was like a gut punch. It was a real gut punch. I felt like they didn't really care about me or to know me. And it's the same with the people who did really help. It was those that were like, it wasn't a morbid curiosity, but it was more like, what do you mean you have OCD? What does that mean? Like, what do you do? Do you have obsessions? Like, what are your compulsions? Is that why you wash your hands so much? Like, people who just asked, that was really helpful for me. So it was more just knowing that people cared, I think, without
Yes.
making me feel like a freak, you know, like that was huge.
Yeah, it sounds like you want people to show curiosity and not to recoil away from the topic, right?
Yeah. I mean, I remember when I started telling my friends, like more friends, I told only a handful of people, my boyfriend at the time and my family. I wasn't like going around telling everybody. It just that I didn't do that. But when I did start telling more people, it was starting to be talked about on TV. There was that horrific, terrible MTV show where they had people with like pretty severe OCD. It was kind of surpassed my level of OCD, where they would throw them in ridiculous situations, trying to help them have that, I don't remember what it's called, but when you throw somebody in something to have them face their fears and that whole thing. It was so exploitative. Oh God, it was so terrible. There were a few people that I thought, you know, they did a good job with, but mostly it was very exploitative, but it got people talking about it. And so when that came out, I kind of in a rage-filled way was telling everybody around me, like, that's a ridiculous way to showcase OCD and blah, 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 blah. But people knew about it more then. So that's when I, you know, really felt comfortable talking about it. And there were a lot of different things that it's not social media, but maybe TV that made things more open. And I think, like, I'll give a great example. So that TV show Hoarders, when that TV show came out, they would say at the beginning of every show that hoarding is on the other spectrum of OCD. I will tell you, and that eventually the Board of American Psychiatry or whatever that is, they changed their definition of hoarding and took it out of any context of OCD completely, which felt so validating to me, because I know my friends and I who have OCD would watch it and we'd be like, there's no way. This is not OCD. Like, even if it's on the other spectrum, not possible. Nope, no way, they're wrong. Like, it would give all of us extreme anxiety hearing them say, not that, it's not to talk any kind of smack against hoarders, but it's just not the same thing. It's so opposite that it felt nuts to all of us who have it to even put it in the same category. And so when they switched it, it was really huge, but that also got people talking about it when they moved the hoarding category, and just having people talk about any kind of just mental disorder. I never thought of OCD as a mental illness per se. I don't even know if it's classified as a mental illness or a mental disorder. I'm not really even sure about the classification of OCD, to be totally honest with you, but I never felt like I had mental illness. My brain functioned for the most part really normally. It was just my obsessions. And now looking back on it, like, oh God, that's probably how people in different aspects with depression feel, or somebody with schizophrenia. You know, it's, for the most part, I think when you have anything that's kind of going on with your brain, you often feel normal for a chunk of the time. So I don't know, it's tricky. I could talk about it for hours. It's like it's a tricky subject, but I will tell you that having OCD, talking about it, discovering how many people I know that have it in some capacity, it's given me a lot of empathy for people with other disorders. And it's also shown me a lot of apathy. I'm going to put something out there that I've wanted to say publicly for years. I want people to stop saying that they are so OCD. It is so incredibly offensive, and I don't get offended easily. I am a Jewish Israeli woman, and I've heard everything you can imagine, and I don't get offended easily. But to have that become a pop culture term, and I'm sorry I'm getting so heated about it, it's something that's bothered me for years. I could just like punch a wall as a nonviolent person thinking about that term. It is so diminishing to people who have OCD to say, oh, I'm so OCD. Like, no, you're not. You're a normal person whose brain functions in a normal way. And maybe you're particular about where you like to put your salt and pepper shakers. That does not make you so OCD. And also, just to add to that, it's grammatically incredibly incorrect and not even right. There's no such thing as so OCD. OCD is obsessive compulsive disorder. It's not an action, it's a thing. So I want to put that out, and I'm getting very, heated and emotional about it, because it's the one thing that's always just really upset me and felt really just diminishing. So, yeah.
That makes sense. And that's a really great reminder. I mean, I guess I don't know if I've ever said that, but I wouldn't even think of that. And it reminds me of sometimes when you're healed or you're further along in your healing, part of the healing is becoming sort of an activist or raising awareness about what your condition is. And you want other people to understand you a little bit better. And so you're sharing more about it. And that can be great and really healing. But it also reminds me, like something you said about the show Hoarders, where they changed the definition of hoarding to reclassify it as not a type of OCD after all. That's pointing at the fact that a lot of mental health conditions are defined, or actually pretty much all of them, I think, are defined by committee. There's like a committee of psychologists and psychiatrists who meet once every few years and then tweaks and changes the definitions of things. And, let's not forget that in the past, there have been things there's a big book, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, which lists all of the definitions of the mental disorders and defines them. And that book changes all the time. And let's not forget that in the past, there have been definitions in there that define homosexuality as a mental disorder, that define gender nonconformity as a mental disorder. And there's still people who have those attitudes, right? But the official definitions have changed, and it just shows how arbitrary they are. So, and I think that talking about these phenomena on the internet has the power to actually affect the future definitions of them, because the people who make the definitions must be influenced or listening. If there's enough noise about it on the internet, they must be listening a little bit, at least, to the public discourse and to the evolving knowledge about what these things actually are. And it's difficult because there's not like a test, it's not like you're testing for an antibody or you're measuring someone's blood pressure. It's like you're talking to a person and asking them to describe what's going on in their mind and how they feel. And that's just not the same as we tend to think of illness in this society, right? Or disease. And maybe it's, maybe illness and disease are also terms that add a stigma to it, right?
Yeah.
Dr. do you have anything you want to add?
No, not really. I mean, I think we got a lot of very good meaty stuff in here. I think we can begin to wrap and maybe revisit this topic a little bit more in the future and get maybe some feedback from people in the audience about if they've struggled through anything. Maybe they want to share their stories.
Yeah, that would be great.
Well, thanks so much, Lauren, for sharing about your OCD life.
You're welcome.
I feel like I still want you to come over and help me clear out my closets. Aren't qualified for that? Is that being insensitive to your needs?
No. I mean, that's actually something that there are some perks to my OCD-ness. I'm really good at packing, really good at organizing.
Good. Okay. Well, see, I accept you for who you are. And if you're listening to the show, we'd love to hear from you if you've had any kind of struggles like this. Do you have an opinion on this? Do you have any feedback for us? And I don't know, thanks again to our sponsor, Valtoro. We will see you next time for Proof of Love. We usually put out the show on Fridays, so go to proofoflovecast.com. Connect with us there and share about it on social media. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.
Show me your heart. I know that it's beating. Tell me that you love me too. So I know your heart is true. 'Cause I need some proof of love. 'Cause I need some proof of love. 'Cause I need some proof of love. Do you like cryptocurrency, politics, economics, activism, or art? Then check out The Tatiana Show, where you can learn all about it in a fun and non-intimidating way, as if you're just hanging with friends. Go to thetatianashow.com and listen now. Thank you for listening to Proof of Love. Please follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Proof of Lovecast. More episodes can be found at proofoflovecast.com. And make sure you leave a review on iTunes and tell your friends. Proof of Love has been brought to you by CryptoMediaHub.com, a boutique marketing and PR agency for Bitcoin and beyond.